I want to address some problems that are going to be an issue when you're installing additional ballast in a 2014, specifically VLX 21-foot Malibu boat. And the problem is that there are ballast bag upgrades available. I chose the WakeMaker ballast bag. However, even though it says it works for a VLX, a 2014, there's a lot less room in the aft locker of the 21-foot than there is on the 23-foot various Malibu models that they show the installations with. And so it doesn't actually fit to run the hoses the way it's listed in the WakeMaker setup. On the 2014, it's a unique year because the options, at least in my boat, to put the Piggy Back system are actually on the tank, even though the boat itself wasn't plumbed from the factory. So what I'm going to show you is how to take the 2014 21-foot VLX and install the WakeMaker setup as a piggyback ballast system instead of having to replumb everything, which there's really not room for. And I'll show you some of the specific issues I ran into as I went through this and how I fixed them. So here you see some of the issues as I tried to install the system according to the WakeMaker setup. There is just physically no room to run those hoses the way that they show in their other installations when you're dealing with just a 21-foot boat. Everything in the engine compartment is just too tight, especially on this side where you've got the fuel carbon emitter filter, and you can see that it's just, there's no way to run those hoses and then put back in the cover places that are necessary to make that all fit. But what I did is on the 2014, I was curious to see if it had the connections for the ballast tank to do the piggyback system. So I took the cover off in the aft and then the front of each ballast tank cover, and as you can see, it actually has the connections on the tank to put in the piggyback system. So I was able to, using those connections, modify the WakeMaker system to actually set it up as a piggyback system that required much less room for all of the hoses and made it work flawlessly. So I'm going to go ahead and show you and cut to the actual footage of how I connected this to make it all work with the piggyback system instead of the WakeMaker system. Actually makes it work much better and exactly like the newer Malibu piggyback systems work. Drains and fills excellent, and it completely empties the bag without any problems or air pockets. It worked great. And what I think is the best part is I was able to use all of the fittings on the current drain and fill system that's built into this version of the Malibu VLX, just using these existing elbow fittings. Okay, so here we have, I've got the cover removed from that back ballast tank. You can see the cap that we're going to remove in order to put in a new elbow onto that tank that will connect the ballast bag. Now, some tips to getting this: you do have to loosen that entire floorboard cover. In addition to that cover that I've removed there, you're going to have to remove that entire floorboard so that you can twist the fittings in. It's really not too bad. It sounds like it's a lot more work than it is, but you can see I have to remove the engine cover separator and then remove the track that holds that engine cover panel in place. So just a couple of screws that go through the floor there. Just unscrewed all of those to remove that track. Remove the little corner pieces in the front and the back, and that makes it so that I can then lift up that entire floor pretty easily. I don't take it all the way out. You just have to be able to lift it up a few inches so that you can twist the new elbow fittings into place. And so I've taken the cover off here so I can also see that cap. Got the cover off. I can see my temporary cap that I'm going to take out at the top of that tank. And again, those are just the fittings that go into that factory tank to do the plug and play piggyback system. So once that floor is ready to be removed, and again there's a little cover piece there that Malibu puts in. It's a little hokey if you ask me, but to kind of try and just cover up that bad fitting of the floorboard going above that ballast tank in the back. So I remove that as well, and you can see it just allows me to lift that tank up, or that floorboard up, a few inches, and that way I can twist in the new elbow fitting once I have that temporary cap out of place. And then we'll just go ahead and screw it all back down into place. Like I say, it sounds like a lot more work than it really is. That part's actually pretty simple. I don't know if this is necessary, but the factory plug there was siliconed in. Instead of silicone, I'm just going to use some regular Teflon tape. Probably actually even okay without it, but just to ensure we don't have any leaks, I'm going to use a little Teflon tape and we'll thread that in. Okay, so you can see we've got the angles in both the front and the back, so we'll just go ahead and connect some hoses. There's not really the right amount of room. When they actually went to the factory, this connection would have been off the back pointing up or off the side more so that you had more room to this hose. It's a little bit tough because the hose wants to go right against this. I also tried on the other side cutting this out and having this facing forward, but it pushed the bags. By the time you connect this onto the next thing, it pushed the front of the bag so far forward in this smaller compartment in the 21 foot. I just felt like it pushed the bag too far forward and actually made it hard to connect up front. So instead, what I've done, I'll show you what I've done, is I'm pointing at the back and I'm just going to do a little loop around to kind of give it some give as if the bag slides around without having to brake. I don't want to have pressure right actually on that, the full weight of the bag. So we'll just make a little horseshoe that comes out here, gives a little bit of give, do kind of the same thing at the front. I'll show you when we're done. So here's the back thing. I don't love this big loop here. I'm sure that definitely, slows down the draining. Probably doesn't affect the fill, but I'm sure it slows down the drain. But I don't. Otherwise, you've got to cut out this separation board in between, which I even tried on this side, as you can see, and I ended up putting it back in because I still was worried about too much pressure on this and getting the bag far enough back. I actually like the way it turned out as far as the connection. You do have to take the cover off to get that connection on and off, but that's probably only a once a year thing, so no big deal. And then it's perfectly hidden underneath that when we put it together. Okay, so just fixed up the drain valve now, or the overflow valve, the air vent valve. So we've got the one-way valve here, the check valve, and then of course through the through hole, which on this 2014 it is the rear port for the air valve. Now what I did on this side is I just capped the air the airflow release valve from the hard tank in the stock tank that goes down to the stock tank. On this one I just capped the old drain vent to the hard tank. It's still connected down there just to make it easy, but I just capped it here, took it off, and then I just put the vent out the top. And I'm guessing this will make the bag inflate much better. And then I'll probably do this back to the other side. So here now you can see the finished product. You can see it fits everything really well into the back tank. You can see how that back ballast goes nicely under that back cover. This is the front tank on the starboard side. Here's the front tank on the port side. You can see I still have room to put in my skis and things when I'm not using that overflow ballast tank. So you can see that from a couple of different angles. Here's the port, or the back tank. Again, this is on the starboard side, and you can see it fits really nicely. Bags completely empty very quickly, completely air suck down and empty tight like that. The improvement in the wake is incredible, and they fill and run right from your regular ballast switches. So definitely was worth it. Definitely is worth hooking it up as a plug-in or as a piggyback system. Much better, much cleaner, a lot more room, and a lot less trouble routing the hoses. You do need to get the different fittings, but with a couple extra fittings I was able to just cut up basically the stock system that WakeMakers sent me and put it together like this.